Great.
Yeah.
So let's get started. I'm really excited to welcome all of you to our Friends of Figma, another event that is called How to Get Hired as DesignOps. So we have today a great panel of speakers.
I'm Dominique Ward. I lead design operations at Atlassian. I have been in design ops in some form or fashion for the last 10 years before we got the name. And I'm really passionate about systems thinking, service design, and really just designing design teams.
Great. Jose, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Farid, and thank you, Dominic, for setting us up. My name is Jose Coronado. I'm building a design operations team at JP Morgan. My background is in design leadership. So before there was design operations, I was the person doing career development, tools, design systems, all that other good stuff. And over the last 5 to 6 years, I've been focusing primarily on solving a service design problem, which is the way I see and I define design operations. Our world is Excel and PowerPoint, a lot of it, not Figma and or InVision or you call it, but it's a lot more in numbers and matrices and how we solve the problems to enable our design teams. And that is definitely an area that I have been focusing on for long.
Great.
Adrienne Allnut. I am leading the design operations team at ServiceNow, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining. Thank you very much. Brennan, would you like to introduce yourself to the community?
Yeah, hey, I'm Brennan Hartich. I lead design operations for the product design team at Slack. There's about 100 of us on the product design team at Slack, and there's a small but mighty group of about 7 of us on the ops side. Before Slack, I've done some sort of ops for a while at like Facebook or Intuit. And before even like being in-house at a tech company, I did the whole agency producer type life. And I actually fell into design and design ops. My majors in college were international business and cello performance, which have nothing to do with this in some ways.
Polin, I lead our design ops team at Zillow, and I'm so excited to be here. We are building out our team.
And my name is Farid Sabitov. I'm Friends of Figma community advocate leading DesignOps chapter. So really excited to welcome all of you in our session. The goal of our call is to show how organizations are hiring DesignOps practitioners. So that's why we prepared some of the questions here at the bottom. And if you feel like you want to get answers to specific questions, you can upvote that by clicking here on the simple vote widget. Yeah. Within that way, we will be able to see which questions are much more interesting for the community. And thank you for people who already started sharing their photos. Hi, Andy. Hi, Greg. Hi, Alexandra. Thank you for joining. Hi, Peter. Hi, Nicholas. Thank you for joining. You can, by the way, click on this red button to share your photo with the community. And please share your Twitter accounts here as well. Here at the bottom, we have really interesting thing that we never did before. It's called I want to have a CV pre-screening. So we are not sure that we will be able to do that during the call, but if you're interested to hear expert feedback on your CV, please share your link here. Maybe at the end of the call, we will be able to do some things together. And also we have here a section for hiring opportunities from the speakers. So if you will have any questions, please let us know. Feel free to share your reactions inside our FigJam file as well. Great. So I see a lot of votes on specific questions, but let's go through the first one. The first question is, what is your general hiring process? And please elaborate if DesignOps hiring process is different from design management and design leadership hiring process. Dominic, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. So this is very top of mind for me because a bunch of hiring in the last few months, and in this quarter, we have a bunch of open roles. So our process is exactly the same as designers and design managers, depending on what role you're going for. So it's essentially, you have a pre-screen with the hiring manager, and then after that, we do a round of a portfolio review, so a DesignOps portfolio, as well as a kind of a team. We're really focused on collaboration at Atlassian and teamwork, and so it's really important that the DesignOps team have that time with me. And then again, depending on the role, it's either a stakeholder interview where you meet with your either a cross-functional partner or your design partner. And then we have a values interview, which is what we do across all of Atlassian. Our company values are really core to how we work and how we navigate our day to day, and how we also talk about growth and development and performance. And so that values interview is from anyone across the org or across the company, to really talk through each of our 5 values and how you have demonstrated them in your past.
Great. And I'm curious, like, just to clarify, you have pre-screening with the portfolio review. The next one is stakeholder interview, right? And the values interview, the last one, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And what's the average time, like, are you spending for hiring? Like, how much time from like applying to like getting a job offer usually takes?
I think it depends. I have roles that have been open for, at this point, 6 months, and I have had roles that were, hired within a month. So it's really runs the gamut. It also depends on the region. So we're Team Anywhere right now. So we're optimizing for remote first, but because of where majority of our teams are, we do need to have some roles be in specific regions. And so for Sydney and APAC, it takes a little bit longer, just because there aren't as many design ops practitioners in Australia. So it ebbs and flows.
Yeah, totally agree. I see a lot of questions from portfolio, but we have a dedicated section for that. So thank you for sharing that. We will cover that. Yeah, dear experts, please, if you want to add something, please put your cursor into ready to answer section, so we'll be able to understand if you're ready to add something. But yeah, Adrian, do you want to add something? Or share your process?
I just wanted to share a comment too on Dominique's. That's really interesting that you dedicate some time to the values portion and calling that out specifically, and giving attention to it, because I think most of us probably incorporate that within the process, but we're not actually calling out the attention of, like, we're actually having that conversation and evaluating that person based on those values, and making sure that those values are important to the individual too, right? Because it's an interview for the individual as well, making sure that they're going to be happy in this role and at this company. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And I would say, obviously, and this is across the board for roles at Atlassian, obviously craft is really important. But if, like, you could be the most talented person in the world and have all the experience in the world, but if you don't get, if the feedback from the values interview isn't there, then you likely we won't bring you on, because it's all about, living the values in the day to day, and how you interact with people and the team, and so it carries a lot more weight than I think in a lot of places it ordinarily would.
Great.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick question or a quick comment. And I know you had the portfolio question later. We don't do, for design operations, we don't do a portfolio review or a case study presentation. All of our process is based on behavioral interview questions. And we don't do what would you do if you encountered this situation. All of our behavioral questions are, tell us specifically what happened when you encountered this situation, what was the context, what did you do, what was the outcome, who was the team, what was your role, that type of perspective, not a hypothetical, but a more experience-based behavioral interview perspective. And that's how our, the portfolio itself is basically how our process for design operations differs from the process for the design team, where they do either portfolio review or a case study review that we don't. However, when the more I hear or exchange notes with design operations leaders, I'm learning that there's some value with that perspective, specifically if you're looking for, a concrete experience in a particular area or something like that. And talking about background, I think I'll leave the background to one of the other questions. Let me just stop with those few comments there.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's go to the next question. We see like we have 6 votes already for that one. Is
Can
it
I add
hard
one
to
more?
find? Yeah.
Because I know it's a hot topic at times. We don't do design exercises anymore. It is just across the board in design interviews. And so that hypothetical that Jose was talking about, we no longer. And so part of that is just making sure exactly behavioral questions and what were the things that you did to contribute to this project? And one of the things that I love about the portfolio review, because it actually gets to the specifics of what that practitioner or that interviewee did in the context of delivering that work. Because a lot of times, I think in the work that we do, it's often easy to blend our role with what we delivered with what the team delivered. And so really parsing that out is really important.
Great. I see one
And
question around. Yeah.
I'll just add one thing. Ours is very similar to what Dominique just voiced over, where we do a portfolio review for DesignOps candidates, but it's the prompt is very broad intentionally. It's more like walk me through a process you've implemented and really focusing on the how and how they did that and how they participated in contributing to that work. And then there's some time for Q&A for the panelists and then a group of other people that are joining that portfolio review. So the workflow for anyone in design versus design ops is the same, but the way that we ask the prompts are a little bit different.
Yeah, thank you. I see a lot of questions here. There is one question from Greg. Curious why not? Why there is no design exercises? Dominic, would you like to answer?
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that's been a hot topic in the design industry broadly, right? About the ethics around asking people to do additional work, right? How design exercises are not how we tend to work in real life. You know, asking someone to walk into a room, come up with an idea, and then, a solution, right? It's not actually the design process that we want people to work through, right? And so yes, there is value in seeing how, but there are kind of icky power dynamics that are involved with design exercises, and for us, it's not really indicative of our culture and again how we want to work.
Yeah, we have some more questions. I will try to add them into other sections because we have some similar ones. Is it hard to find design notes? Which channels are you using to find the right people? Adrian, would you like to answer?
Sure, I can go ahead and get us started. I'm sure it's very similar across most of us here, but first I want to give a shout out to the DesignOps Assembly. I think this is a space that I've met a ton of people and been able to network with a lot of people. So that's number one, I think a place for me that I'm, when I'm hiring, I am posting jobs there, posting jobs on Twitter, things like that in order to get the word out, as well as LinkedIn search, Recruiter, all of that has been a great resource. But a lot of it has been through, fortunately, networking, asking people I've met already in the industry, do they have anyone they know that could be a good, add to the company? But I'm also looking for, individuals that might not be part of those communities already. And so making sure that I'm, being fair with those opportunities. So there's a lot of reach outs as well, I'd say, through like LinkedIn, on people through agencies. So shout out to agencies too. I found a lot of great people who have come from an agency background. And so, yeah, I would say it's interesting. I know this question is later on too, but it's interesting to think about our hiring now versus our hiring like 5-7 years ago. I think the pool of candidates and the interest in design ops as an industry has increased a ton in that period of time. And so I would say it's not as hard right now. I think that's a good thing for people that are hiring, a bad thing for people who are trying to get into the industry. But fortunately, I know a lot of companies, including, ServiceNow, is hiring a lot. We're hiring like 2 internships this summer, which is great to see that within the design ops field. And we're hiring our first apprenticeship. So career pivoters, anyone who's looking to come into the industry. So there are more of those opportunities as design ops becomes more solidified and more mature, that there are a lot of those opportunities for people to break into the field as well. I'll stop there. I was a little all over the place there. I'll let someone else chime in.
I can just add to that. So very similar to what Adrian just said, a lot of social channels amazing recruiting team, as well as things like this, the DesignOps Assembly, Rosenfeld Media, all of those things within our DesignOps community, as well as intern candidates that are internal transfers, as well as internal referrals. So we're getting quite a good mix of people coming in that way. And I will say I know you have a question about this later, but the landscape that has just changed over the last 2 years of being able to cast a wider net of people across the US, given that we are remote, it's helped so much just in terms of getting high quality candidates, but also the volume that we are seeing has really, really helped with recruiting efforts there.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
I would add just a quick couple of different avenues. One thing that we have tried this year, we did a design community event, which has basically an open house. And it had some great participation and different levels of experience from career switchers to experienced practitioners. And we did that for design as a whole, not just for design operations. And I think the other aspect, I think we all use kind of similar channels. However, one of our pillars for recruiting or thinking different about recruiting has been about reaching to places where we usually don't. So Tequeria, for example, which is a Latinx community of text and digital practitioners, or Blacks who design, or Latinx who design, or women who design, because if we just go to LinkedIn, the chances are it's going to be the same people that we have in our own circle or network. Or if we go to just referrals, we're going to have, the same people that we used to work with rather than the newcomers into the industry. And we have, so far mixed results, but at the end of about a list of 10 places where we have not intentionally gone to before, we now focus on, okay, we're going to test 2 channels. And we're going to go all in terms of sponsorship, paid job placements or access to their, paid access to their CV database, because we believe that we have to really start looking beyond our immediate circle if we really want to come through with a really diverse group of people. And I love what Adrian mentioned in terms of opening the apprenticeship and internship program. I just launched the one for JP Morgan Design, but design operations intentionally was excluded from that. But I'm glad to hear that some of you are embracing that for design operations as well.
Yeah. Jamie, do you want to add?
Nope. I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I just saw your cursor here. So,
No worries.
but that's a great feedback. There's another interesting question that I'm not able to just pass. Do you look only for people that has experience in DesignOps? What other previous roles are available to start as DesignOps?
I'll raise my hand on that one, because I just hired 2 people. One, no degree, experience with a global program, specifically of learning and growth, and basically no design background before they did this particular global program. And we basically just landed this person, and I'm super excited about that. And another hire that I did, we're all talking about hiring and recruiting. Well, why look for a design operations person with experience in hiring and recruiting? Why not just go look for maybe an HR person or a recruiter or somebody and I just happened to land a person with more of that background than the DesignOps background. And now we're basically adding these skills that we usually have not had in the design team to expand our ability to create the processes, the programs, and support the design leadership team in the manner with it is more intentional about those areas. So of the perspective that let's look for non-traditional places to find design operations people to help us in the areas of need that we have.
Does anyone wants to add to that question?
I look for, it depends on the role, obviously, but one of the roles that I've been hiring for, I'm open to engineers, right? Because it's around defining our QA process and wrapping it into how engineering does it. So the need to have a strong understanding of engineering best practices and also speak that language is really key. I look for people with service design background and as well, but I know, that there are a lot of people who, just as Adrian was saying, who are interested in design ops now that they have that kind of like, oh, I want to get in, but I can't figure a way to get in because now we have all these people who have years of experience in design ops. And so being interested in solving the design of design problems is really just the biggest thing that I look for.
That's true. Peter, thank you for adding some of the answers. Dominic, thank you for sharing the service design communities, but as well, I believe like that's another interesting source, interesting channel for finding designers practitioners. I believe we can switch to the next question. What is your approximate hiring rate of designers people, and why do you think you have such results? This is more specific about like how many like job applications you got and how many of them like you were able to send an offer. Or maybe it's like too private. Maybe we shouldn't cover this question. So I don't see any.
I'll just give you one quick data point. We didn't have design program managers 2 years ago, and for my first 2 roles, I have about 200 applicants, and I was just hiring 2 people. Right now, I'm not sure if I'm getting too picky and my team is getting too picky, but it's like we have 10 people applying for a design program manager role, and we hire none. So it's like we're kind of in this unbalanced world of, are we demanding too much of the candidates that we're looking for? Or are we, I'm going to confess, are we being exclusionary by design in terms of the type of skills that we're demanding that the candidates have? So I don't know the answer to that. That's just a 2 data point comparison in a 2-year macro level period perspective.
That's true.
So in the fall, I had 1 job posting up, but I had 3 other roles that hadn't gone up yet. And for that first posting, we got, I think, 150 candidates apply for it in like 3 to 4 weeks. And we had such good candidates that those other 2 of those 4 roles never went up because it was just, I think I met with probably about 15 or 20 people, and I ended up extending offers to the candidates that were strong. And I think of the like 5, I had 5 really strong candidates out of that 20, and 4 has been hired at Atlassian, either on my team or another team. So I think it's one of the things that that we should think about, and also for design hiring as well, is like, if there's strong candidates in a pool and you don't hire them, push them in the direction of another role if there's a role available, or at least bring them back for an interview at a role that opens up in the future. And I think we lose so many good candidates across the board when we don't go back to who we talked to before.
Great, thank you for answers. Let's switch to another one. Do DesignOps people need experience? What kind of experience are you looking for? Do DesignOps people need to grow from design practice or not? It's well posed, like most requested question. Adrian, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can. And then I know, Brennan, if you wanted to jump in too, we haven't heard from you. Do you want to start, Brennan?
Yeah, sure. No, I've just been like listening in oh, can you hear me still?
Yeah. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry. No, I was just listening in and like agreeing with everything everybody's saying. So I was like, you're all doing it for me. I love it. But so this is a tricky one, and I think it depends. The answer is always it depends, right? And I think it depends on like the level and the need of the team. And I think like this is going to be, my answer will be to this, but also even like the last one. And so, for example, I had 2 open roles in like the last 6 months, and we kind of split our team up into 2 different areas. And I think a lot of ops teams do this. We have kind of this product work side where it's like design program managers. They're working specifically on product teams, working on things getting out the door. And then we have the other branch, which is a lot more around like design team programs, right? Onboarding, L&D, things like that. And I really thought that it was going to be really hard to find that like global design teams program person, and really easy to find the product like DPM type roles. And it was completely opposite. And so talking about the last question around like, what is the, rate of which you go through? we found like an amazing amount of candidates that were like all qualified for that global role. And it took me so long to find the product role. And I think that kind of applies in this situation as well, like to this question for me. So for example, like I think you can have a lot of people in different roles outside of design that could probably work on global programs for a team, right? Like you could have someone from engineering, you could have someone from outside of tech who has run programs that could still be really relevant. Whereas I have to admit, for like a product specific team role, I have to have someone who has done that before for that level of that role that I'm hiring for. And so I think that's somewhat of an answer to this question. And I think the second part of like, do design ops people need to grow from the design practice or not? Also depends, right? Like we have a role for like design systems. That's a role where I actually do need someone who has worked a lot with the design team and design components and design assets, right? That's a must. I don't necessarily need that though for like maybe like a design coordinator role or a role that's for, again, like design global teams. So it depends. I hate that answer and it's always the answer, but I hope that gives a little insight. I don't know.
For sure, thank you very much. Really helpful, and I really liked your separation of like design ops and like product specific ops. So, yeah, someone just shared design skill metrics framework. Thank you for that. Oh, Adrian, thank you.
Oh yeah, I just dropped that in there, and that's something we used. I generalized it a little bit, but at my last company, and it's something that I think would be really helpful for this. And just thinking about, it's actually an assessment tool like you can use if you're in design ops already, kind of like mapping out where you are today and then maybe where you want to grow to in like a year or two. But I think it's a really good place to start thinking. I know this blends with some other questions too, but on no matter what your background is, if you can tailor how you talk about and you approach situations like project management, program management, Dominique, service design, any background that you come from, if you're able to like anchor and show your passion in these spaces that we're looking for in design ops, that's really going to shine through no matter what your background is. And being able to like take the experience you have and share how you've learned how to communicate really well, or why effective communication is so important in design operations, or how you understand the product, if you're going into design program management, how you understand the product development life cycle. And maybe you haven't worked in that space before, but you get it and you can talk to it. And I think anywhere, honestly, for me, one thing I look for is just passion. Like if you're able to talk passionately about what you're doing and how it might apply to this role, or how your past experiences could apply to this role, that's really something like really, really attractive to me when I'm talking to someone. So just try to emphasize what this important skills are for the role, based on the job description, based on what you know of the industry, and get excited about it. I think people get really excited when you're really excited about it. So that's a tip that I have.
Thank you. Great. Yeah. Does anyone want to add?
I can just add one more tidbit similar to what Brennan and Adrian just mentioned. I mean, we don't look specifically for people with design ops experience only, because we're typically looking for generalists. Depending on the role, we can cast a wider net, and that way we're able to hopefully make for a more diverse and skilled team. The core skill that I look for, which is also very generic, but is program management. So with a host of other backgrounds. So depending on whatever the specific role is, whether it's, UX, product development, team ops things, career development, recruiting, hiring, budget, tooling, any of those things I look for, but definitely the core skill is programming.
I'll just add beyond like what I've said about service design, but the ability to speak and communicate clearly and effectively is really important. Regardless of the role. Strong stakeholder management is also something like from the like very specifics that I look for. And also just the ability, like a growth mindset, right? So the ability to, and the mindset of like, I may not know all the things, but I'm excited about digging in, right? Because if you have that, then everything else is learnable. And you can learn it on the job, especially if you have a bunch of experience in a bunch of different places, you can adapt the skill to the situation that you're in. If you're more junior, then, you're likely a generalist to begin with, and then you can just build on top of that. But the those specific behaviors around communication, stakeholder management, and also just kind of like systems thinking and the ability to kind of really connect the dots are really important for any role, regardless of what the focus is.
That's true. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing. So we can switch to the next one. Do DesignOps need a portfolio or self-introduction?
As I mentioned at the beginning, I don't think we don't ask for it. I have been actually impressed by people who have, well, let me show you what I mean. And then they go with a couple of slides. I think my favorite question, and is the one that I always open with, is tell me about you, but from a professional perspective, what your value is, and not from a biographical point of view. And you cannot imagine how many people just give me their biographical perspective, even though I just explicitly told them to not give me the bio perspective. So just to give you an example of what I say is like, I'm a design leader. I work in collaboration manner with partners in design, tech, and product. And I, galvanize globally distributed teams to deliver the results that the team needs. That's kind of my, short summary. But that's kind of the type of thing that I want people to articulate in a clear manner in terms of, who they are, what kind of value they bring to the table, and basically how can that value translate to our organization. But, I'm opposed to design exercises. I think the portfolio takes a lot of work to do. So I just, I'm cognizant of that. And that's why I stay away from portfolio required, because that means I'm excluding many people who may not have the portfolio. So how can I, expand the wider net?
That's true. Jamie, I'm really curious how it works in Zillow. Can you share? Are you looking for portfolios or self-introductions from people?
Yeah, I mean, what we typically do, I touched on this a little bit earlier, is we ask for DesignOps candidates to come in with like a process they implemented, an overview of how they plan that process and what tools they use, and then samples of communication, so that we can, and it's less about like putting something together in like a formal portfolio, but really speaking on their work of something they're proud of. And we're trying to make it a little more informal. I know, Dominique, you mentioned this earlier of how you're sort of changing the way you're doing portfolios a little bit. We're trying to think about that too. Is like, we don't want people to feel like they need to like create this like polished presentation, but more just sharing the things that they've worked on, so that we can get a better sense of their experience, what they're looking for, and where their skills and strengths are. And so those are sort of the prompts that we use right now, but it's ever changing. And, we've only been around as a function for about 2 years. And so we're learning as we go. And we're hiring right now four roles on our team, a VP of Ops as well. And so that's what we've done over the last year, as we've grown from 2 to 6, and now we're about to grow from 6 to 10. And so I'll let you know, the answer might be a little bit different in a couple of months, but that's what we do right now.
So my DesignOps team is multidisciplinary. So I have designers on my team, as well as some program managers, some facilitators, and just like operators. And we also sit within the design org, and are also aligned to the design growth profiles. So it offers an opportunity for designers to switch over to ops and vice versa. And so it was important that we kept the same kind of process when it comes to our interviewing, but we kind of switch up the prompts. And so just to Jamie's point, you don't have to have a super polished portfolio like you would expect a designer, right? Because that's one of the things when you go in for a design interview, you are not rated, but assessed based on like the work that you're presenting, but also the quality of the portfolio itself and the design of the portfolio. But really, we ask for 2 to 3 case studies highlighting 2 things. One, a project or a program where, and I'm going to read straight from the prompt that we give our candidates, a project or a program where you played an instrumental role in working with stakeholders and or cross-functional, like product or engineering. And then we asked them to talk about challenges they overcame, how they managed alignment, how they communicated and measured success. And then another example of just their experience with design operations. And that can really mean anything, especially if you don't come from a specific design ops background. So how you've developed processes or ways of working or engagement models, or how you've codified best practices, and then also how you collaborate with peers and partners. And so that again could probably be like, paragraphs and bullet points. It's just around like how they communicated and how they talked through the challenges, how they mitigated risk and things of that nature. So you get to how they solve problems in the context of the work they've done.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Adrian, for adding all the notes here. It's like really insightful. Great, thank you very much. So I believe we can switch to the next one. What kind of questions are you asking, and what do you do? And what do you want to see during the interview? I believe we answered all these questions already, and Adrian shared a lot of notes around that, so we could move to the next one. Are you asking to do the test assignment projects after passing the interview? Can you share examples? Does anyone want to share if they are doing test assignments? Would you like to share your thoughts on that?
I can share mine. This is such a tricky subject. I feel like it is always a spicy conversation and a topic on every team. And so I feel like anytime this gets brought up, like I understand like kind of all sides of this. I think that's my problem here. I'm torn, to be honest. So we don't do this anymore. But I have to also say, now that we don't do it, we've had certain candidates kind of go farther down the process than I think they would have if we had had this exercise, and it didn't work out. And so I need to find a better way, to be honest. I don't think we found it. And I think it's something we're all trying to figure out, right? How do we always update our interview process? But we used to give like an exercise of like, imagine you have this project and there's, 8 product teams and, all this kind of stuff. And it was really useful, I'm not gonna lie, for certain teams. But then, yeah, it only then is useful though for people who have come from a team where they've done this exact thing, right? Which is not always what we're looking for. So that's why we got rid of it. So instead, kind of to everybody's points here though, like we're trying to instead like ask these questions within the interview process instead of like, tell me about a time that you did something like X, and then hopefully that will help answer the question. But all that to say is I'm still not happy with the way like our interview process is fully set up, and I feel like there's a way eventually we're all going to learn that we can do kind of like a middle ground of both, hopefully. So that wasn't an answer to this question, but just some more context, like for us personally, like we're still kind of struggling on how to assess.
Great, Peter, thank you for sharing. Peter shared his test assignment when he joined Miro as a first DesignOps person. He was asked to analyze 2 related processes, product management versus design, and suggest ways to improve this using the Miro board. Great, so really excited. By the way, I also heard some of the other stories that retrospective notes were shared with DesignOps person from specific team, and they asked like, what will be your improvement plan? And like based on all the notes and all the like things that people shared. So that's might be another interesting part. Design critique help to see if, design critique sessions also might be useful, agree. Also, test assignments projects create usually unpaid work as part of the interview process, which creates part of the polarizing part of this issue. Yeah, I agree. Does anyone wants to add more things, or we could switch to another question?
The only thing that go ahead, Jose.
No, go ahead. No, I was going to say that we have 5 minutes, so probably move to the last question, but you have a point. I didn't have one.
Yeah, the only thing that I will add that I've seen just firsthand from like just starting to recruit for these roles that we have open is like speed is so important right now. And so you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way where you're still getting the quality candidates that you want and the volume that you want, and casting the wide net from a diversity standpoint and all of those things. But speed really matters right now because the market is just so crazy. And so I agree, Brennan, with what you said around like if there are ways where we can incorporate these things into the standard set of questions that we ask, that would be ideal. And also not putting the burden on the candidate of like, they're interviewing likely not just for the role that they're interviewing for within your company, but likely other roles as well, in addition to potentially having a full-time job. And so not putting that big burden on them and making it as streamlined as possible for both sides.
Thank you. Yeah, we have one last question around the design ops industry within the last 6 months. We did another event as a part of Rosenfield Media Design Ops Summit community call, where we covered the job posting trends in Design Ops Assembly Slack channel. So there are interesting highlights and notes and some interesting feedback from Dave Maloof and other speakers. So if you will have chance, please take a look on our Coda file with the links to the recording. There are a lot of notes shared. And also, as like to help our community as well, we also shared our previous event that we had around first 30 days of being a design ops with the link to the FigJam and to the recording as well. So please go ahead. Kristen and others shared a lot of interesting frameworks, and Z prepared a nice looking framework here as well that we shared within the community. Unfortunately, we have a lot of questions here, but we couldn't cover them all. This is was really interesting and really exciting discussions. I just wanted to check if there is any CVs that people would like to share. There is one in Google. Maybe we will do that offline after the call. Yeah, and make sure that to check out the hiring opportunities from the speakers that were a part of this call as well. And also, yeah, Design Ops Assembly has a lot of interesting job postings as well. So please make sure to check them out. Thank you for sharing all your photos. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Alexandra. Hi, Chloe, Lucy. Yeah, we have 3 minutes left. Just wanted to ask our expert speakers, would you like to share some of your last notes on our discussion today?
I think just parting thought very quickly, being curious. If you have not had a role in design operations, do a little bit of homework and inform yourself as to what your point of view is about it and how you can contribute to it. I think, as I mentioned to you, when I hire non-traditional backgrounds, it's like a question as to process improvement and things like that. It's always interesting to get to see how people answer that. So always being curious and always being willing to learn something new is a very interesting characteristic for us as operators and leaders in our enabling role.
I'll also say that if you don't have experience, like very clear experience in design operations, I highly suggest you dropping in like a note or a cover letter. I've seen a lot of people just apply with the resumes recently, but they don't have like that direct experience. And if I don't look at those applicants and the recruiter does, then it may mean that they get lost in the shuffle. And so just kind of go that extra step and talk about why you're interested in the role that you're trying to shift, and that can really push it over. And also just as Jose was saying, be curious and there's a lot of opportunity in design ops, and just check it out, apply and get engaged.
Brennan, would you like to share some of your notes?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's still a relatively small world in the design ops world. So, similar to kind of your idea of like having people post in their CV or resume to review, also just reach out to us. If you ever just want to be like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into this. I know you don't have a role open, but will you just tell me if I'm on the right track? Yeah, reach out, please. We love that, or I love that, right? So anybody on this call, if you afterwards you want that, for many of us, I'm sure we're all really open to do that as we're trying to grow this practice and just make sure everybody feels welcome into all these roles. So always open to that.
That's true. And thank you, Adrian, for adding all the notes as well, all the answers. So please feel free to check them out after the call as well. Yeah, and I hope that this call will be really helpful for at least someone. If that session helped you to get another job offer in a couple months, please share that within the community. We'll be really interested to hear if that session helped just at least one person. So really excited about that. And thank you. It's really interesting, a lot of interesting questions shared, a lot of interesting answers shared by our experts as well. Thank you all for joining. See you next time.